Hey, good evening, everybody. I got a little bit lazy and used yesterday's video, but I guarantee you it looks exactly the same today as it did yesterday. We've just been having one clear day after another here in our part of Texas. Anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at the charts and see what's going on across the U.S. We're kind of in between systems right now. We've got a major weather system heading up the East Coast. And there it is. This is using digital atmosphere. And there you can see the system right there around Virginia, around Roanoke and Richmond. Actually, Roanoke's way out here. But, yeah, Richmond and I'm trying to remember the cities. Norfolk and then Richmond. Okay. So, yeah, there's the storm, and we've got southeasterly flow up in Long Island up to Massachusetts and Connecticut. And this is pretty classic for systems that come out of the Gulf of Mexico. They tend to be very loaded with moisture, and they go right up the coast. And if they have enough of a temperature contrast between the warm Gulf Stream waters and cold air coming in from Canada, that can give us much more powerful nor'easter storms. And that can really be quite an effect there. For the upcoming book, I was looking at some old pictures, and I figured I would throw some of these in here. Let me go back to that. Yeah, here we go. This was way back in 2002. I went to, let me see if I can shrink that down here. Went to a conference at College DuPage. And as you know, they've got a weather site. In fact, it's right here that we're going to take a look at. They've got great products on here, College DuPage. And this is one of their rare conferences. And this was at the hotel there. And let me see if I can get that going forward. Yeah, that's the parking lot at the hotel. And vending machine. So this is in March 2002. And then we took a drive up to Wisconsin and the UP of Michigan. So I figured we would look at a little bit of this. So this is kind of like looking northwest. And you can see this is a stratocumulus layer. And the symbol for that is like that right there. So what did the weather look like at the surface, or on the surface charts? Well, I happen to have the surface pictures. This was March 18th of 2002. So what did it look like in Wisconsin then? Well, it looked like we were on the backside of a weak system coming through the Great Lakes. A new outbreak of cold air on its way south. And temperatures at the time were in the 20s and 30s. So not much to talk about weather-wise there. The upper level patterns at the time, southwesterly flow. So this doesn't exactly favor a very rapid invasion of cold air coming south. And this is just kind of a look around Wisconsin. Very pretty. We don't have silos like that here in Texas. And this was Lake Superior here. This was on the 19th. And we're getting a little bit of altocumulus, maybe low stratocumulus there, cirrus. And let me try taking a look at the map. We're just kind of experimenting and trying something different here. So where's the next frame here? Yeah, there's the 19th. So we're located about right here. There's a front on the way from the northwest right there. And kind of a cool sunset there on Lake Superior. You can see the snow right outside the door of the motel there. And it's just a look around town. And then the next day, the day after, we went to Minnesota. I think there was a conference there at St. Cloud State University. So this is heading back to Iowa for the next conference. This was the 21st of March, and you can see much different look to the sky. There's cumuliform appearance, and looks like there's actually a little bit of snow coming down. So let's take a look at the 21st and see what changed. Okay, this is the 20th, kind of in between systems, and then the 21st. Okay, much different picture there. Yeah, see that right there. So we're located about right there in this shot. So very strong cold air advection coming down, and what we have is a very cold lower troposphere being modified by the air near the ground, producing a very steep lapse rate near the surface, and so that's kind of an unstable condition. So you get lots of cumuliform, showery type snow showers, and temperatures there around 5 starting out that morning. So it was very cold there, and that's the look of cold air advection there in Minnesota. Very showery snow showers there. And one of the local gas stations there, and then when we made it to Iowa, we lost the snow cover, and yeah, and that's just Iowa right there, and that's all. So that's all I got there, just something a little different to look at to kind of mix things up. So let's see what happened to that system. Big Canadian high pushed southward the next day, and you can see that high pressure right there over Oklahoma and Kansas. So very cold air back in behind that. And then the following day you can see that high just kind of started merging in with the Atlantic high. That's what they tend to do. They gradually move off into Florida and then off into the Atlantic, and then they just kind of fade from view. So the last frame I have for the 24th, that high is pretty much gone, and then we have the next system coming down from Manitoba. So this was a very progressive northwesterly flow type pattern. And there we can see it right there on the upper air charts. Okay, so that's a look back in time 15 years ago. So let's head back into the current weather. And before I get too much further, let me take a look at the chat, make sure I don't have any problems. Okay, so there's our current satellite loop, and a look at the northeast U.S. storm system. All right, taking a look at the chat, Sue M here, Dwayne Ward, catching up on last night's video. Justin Polium, not enough hours at all. Yeah, there have been not enough hours here. I was up till 1 o'clock. I was up all night. Had to work on the IFR column, and last night I was working on the book and slept about 6 hours, and now I'm up for the night again. Got to get back to work on the book. Fun with tech. No music on time-lapse. That's weird. Wonder what's going on. I don't know. I'll have to run some tests a little bit later to figure out what's happening there. There's a little bit of a problem with overcomplexity here with these mixers and stuff. Justin Polium asking about the surprise. Mike R. there from San Francisco, fun with tech. Talking about the music. Yeah, we're having some troubles with the sound mixer. And this is what I'm having to work with. And the sound, when I'm playing the time-lapse, it comes out here, goes to this B1 bus, which goes to the output here, which is a little bit hot. Let me bring that down just a little bit. There we go. I don't know. Everything looks good, so I'm just going to have to run some tests offline a little bit later and find out what's going on. But yeah, that is kind of strange. But in the meantime, let me know if you can hear this. This is the closing song. Okay, let me know if you heard that. If you didn't, I'll just have more to figure out there. Okay, Dwayne Ward, rainy and cool, 59 on the Delmarva. So, yeah, that's right there on the wraparound, back in the deformation zone. And when we talk about the deformation zone, we're talking about the flow back in behind the system. So when you actually kind of put together all the motion taking place, you tend to get kind of a pattern kind of like that right there. And there's this deformation zone on the back side, and there tends to be some stretching of the low-level air in that area. And yeah, they are getting some clouds and rain there. Kevin McKinney, hello from chilly East Tennessee. Ryan Toomeys says, good evening, Tim and chat. Carl Berghoff, no Packers games today. Missed his green and gold. Burl H is with us, and Dwayne Ward. Mike R., Fun with Tech, is hearing the music. Okay, so yeah, you're hearing the music. That must have been during the opening, the actual... Okay. All right, that gives me a better idea what's going on. Thank you very much. Ryan asking if the other email came through. I haven't checked emails. I just got up like 30 minutes ago. Justin Polium, great, clear fall day there. Everything's good, no buffering. Good, good. Mike R. says complex patterns setting up along the west coast this week. Yeah, things are going to get really busy, and we'll take a look at that shortly. Very comfortable in South Florida today, where Ryan Toomeys is, 62 degrees. David Moore says, nice day in the Metroplex today, looking for rain Tuesday, Wednesday. High of 33 in northern Wisconsin, 33 in southern Indiana. And Dwayne Ward says the GFS won this round. GFS went for a multi-low system. A European went warm and cold core, merging for a wicked single low. Yep, they do have vending machines up north. Yeah, that was the machine that ate my money. I still remember that. $11.95 ribeye steak. Yeah, a little discussion there about the slideshow. I'll probably have to put up some more slides. You know, that was kind of fun there. Audio good. Loud and clear on the closing music. Okay, very good. And quickly through the rest of everything. Alpha Lax checking in. Thomas Copeland. Carl Berghoff, I'm sorry to hear about your grandmother. Yeah, I just went through that myself a couple months ago, so I do feel your pain there. And Mike Bexley is with us, and Tom J. Okay, so I think that's everybody. So let's take a look here. I picked this enhancement scheme because this shows some of the colder air coming southward. This is kind of sensitive to some of the cooler temperatures. And obviously this is cloud material right there. All of that is cloud, and so is that right there. But underneath you can see these light green shades right here. This is very cold surface temperatures, and you can see the lakes in there. So obviously that's ground right there. So this is showing the very cold weather all the way down to Atlanta, through Nashville down to Atlanta. But conditions much warmer out in Texas. So this is a very useful tool for looking at temperatures. And out in the Gulf, it looks like we can see some stratocumulus out in that area. I think this is stratocu and not cold ocean temperatures. It should be pretty warm there. In fact, if you look at the rest of the Gulf, Yeah, that's clear skies under the Gulf. You can see it's much warmer, dark blue shades. So that means that all of this is stratocumulus just off the coast right there. Warmer temperatures in the southwest right there. Looks like the hot spot right there along the northwest Mexican coast. And it looks like we have a little system coming into California there through Sacramento down to, I guess, about Santa Barbara. All right, so what's happening? Let's take a look at the thickness chart. Big system there just off the New Jersey coast. And we have very strong baroclinicity in the northern plains right there. And where we've had ridging in the southern U.S., that's kind of spread the temperature contrasts apart right there. So there's not as much of a tight gradient in that area. The fronts are looking like this. Maybe a warm front kind of like that. Cold front, looks like that's cleared Florida. Probably a nice day there. And on the backside, we have very strong cold air advection. The cold air mass itself is over Ohio and Kentucky, and then the cold air advection along the east coast right there all the way down into Georgia and Florida. And then up north we have an Alberta clipper. There it is along the leading edge of that gradient. Maybe a warm front kind of like that right there in Missouri, and then northward from that we have an occluded front. So that's an Alberta clipper on its way south. Lots of cold air advection back in behind that, kind of an active pattern. And whatever was going on in California, it looks like that's mostly a mid-level system right there. Not showing up much at the surface. Okay, so that's the synoptic scale picture. And then looking at the radar, there's our system there in the New York, New Jersey area. Quite a mess there. This is the remains of Philippe heading northward. Let me try the 2-kilometer product. That might look a little bit better. Okay, so quite a bit of rain and showers in that part of the U.S. And where exactly is Philippe? We can pull up the NHC product. And it looks like a lot of the cloud material has kind of outrun it. A little bit further to the north, Philippe, as of 5 p.m., 50 knot gusts, or 50 knots sustained, and then 991 millibars in the center. And they've got that dissipated. Let's try to bring up the theta chart, and there we go. Looks like can't see much of the boundary off the east coast because obviously we don't have any stations out there to look at. I think there may be a little bit of a boundary right there around New Jersey. The rest of it is offshore, and you can see the northwest winds there in Florida. And the coldest air mass, like we said, it's right there over Ohio and Kentucky. Conditions very cold there, and we saw that on the infrared imagery. Further out west, we can definitely pick out a frontal gradient. Remember how we were talking about an Alberta clipper coming south? The tail end of that is shown up very well in Colorado up to Wyoming. So this is a very useful product for tracking those boundaries. So there it is right there. What does that look like on the surface product? Let's check that out. Doesn't show up quite as well on the surface chart. In fact, if you go from, yeah, actually it does. Yeah, we go from upper 50s there in western Colorado to low 30s in Wyoming. Okay, so yeah, that does kind of show up, but you might be kind of confused by these north winds there in Utah. So that's just kind of a reminder to fall back on the fronts, on the temperature, and use that as your guide there. Okay, let's go region by region. And we'll see if we can pick up the tail end of this system here. Okay, current chart looking like this. And yeah, it looks like we do have a boundary from around Cheyenne up to Idaho Falls and up to about Spokane right there. Maybe up into the Columbia River region right there. So some of that cold air is dense enough and thick enough, or I should say deep enough, to come over the mountain passes in some of these areas right here. So probably some very strong canyon winds through western Montana, through Yellowstone, and let's see what happens to that boundary over the next couple days. There it is overnight. And by tomorrow morning, we start out with temperatures around the single digits in Yellowstone Park and up to western Montana. And that cold air is definitely spilling over the tops of the Rockies and coming into the Great Basin area right there. So probably the front is all the way into Nevada now. It's not too often that we get a Canadian air mass spilling over the tops of the mountains like that. Let me see if I can show that to you using the soundings. Let me pull up the latest sounding. Are we up to the 30th at 0Z? I guess we are. Okay. So let me try taking a look at Great Falls. And that looks like a mess. We'll try Riverton, Wyoming. And nothing there. It looks like it's still pretty early. I'm going to try Glasgow, Montana. And I think I'm going to have to take that back to 29th at 12Z. So let me try that. Let me go for Glasgow. And there we go. We can see the depth of the cold air mass. This is the frontal inversion right there. And you can see the winds. Below that layer, they're more northwesterly. Above that, they're more west-northwesterly. And this is kind of significant because the top of the cold air mass is about right there. And that corresponds to about 13,000 feet deep. Now, obviously, that's plenty deep enough to clear the mountain passes. So this is a relatively deep air mass. What's typical is maybe 10,000 feet, perhaps, 8 to 10,000. But on rare occasion, I've seen them as high as about 18 to 20,000 feet deep. And I guess one example I can think of was December 20th of 2008. There was a very deep polar outbreak that came south, and that was very deep, and it just steamrolled right over the Rockies. And when that happens, it tends to dump a lot of cold air into the valleys of Utah and Wyoming and Colorado, which means you tend to have a lot of valley fog, and it's very persistent and stubborn, and you tend to generate a lot of cold air in the Great Basin area, and it kind of is sort of self-reinforcing, and you end up with a very large high-pressure area out in that region, and that's a good setup there for Santa Ana conditions. Okay, elsewhere around the U.S., let's check that out. Hang on a second. Let me get my displays set up correctly. Give me just a second here. Okay, much better. Okay, so let's take a look at the southwestern U.S. since we have a few viewers there. Okay, for today, there's the chart right now. You can see kind of a very light and variable pattern in Nevada and California, so they're in between systems. Maybe a little bit on the warm side. Temperatures around 78 there at Sacramento, 78 at Las Vegas, so yeah, it is kind of warm there. But the next system is going to be coming in from the north, and let's watch that arrive. And you look up to the north there, and you can see the gradient starting to arrive tomorrow morning, coming into Elko and Wendover, and moving into Ely. And looks like the leading edge is somewhat like that right there. So that's kind of a backdoor front coming into Nevada. And then temperatures warm up during the day. This is around the time of max temperature, 62 at Tonopah, which is warm. And Tonopah test range, that's where I used to work. Spent 3 years right there. 79 in Vegas, that's also very warm. But up to the north, it's a little bit mild. Low 50s. And then that cold air continues coming southward. And then by tomorrow night, you can see there are 12Z, temperatures below freezing in northern Nevada. So some of that cold air is making it all the way into the Tonopah and Cedar City area, maybe even to the Sierra Nevadas there. So Reno, looking at about maybe 28 to 29 degrees. And then the following day, not much change. It's not strong enough to produce a Santa Ana pattern. You can see there's not much of a gradient here in the deserts there around Edwards Air Force Base, Daggett, and Barstow. Still showing just kind of a very light east-southeast flow. So, just kind of mild in that area over the next couple days. For the northern plains, currently looking at this, we've got that outbreak coming southward. That Alberta Clipper, there's the leading edge. So that's already come through Denver. And overnight, cold air coming south, but it's not particularly cold. Freezing line still well up to the north. Most of the very cold air is far out west in Wyoming and western Montana. During the day tomorrow, a little bit of a warm-up, but not much. It still stays in the 30s in South Dakota, so obviously some very strong cold air advection. And look at the tail end of that front there in Colorado. In fact, let me back that up to the morning hours. This is midnight tonight. And you can see it looks like the cold air mass has crossed the front range, and it's come into the valleys around Breckenridge and Leadville down to Salida. And that gradient just kind of building in there, so this is kind of a deep cold air mass working its way into the mountainous areas of the Rockies right there. So by tomorrow night, a bit of a warm-up. The rest of the cold air continues moving south into Oklahoma. And then by tomorrow night, a little bit colder, lots of 20s across the Central Plains. And it looks like the cold air has succeeded in making it pretty much everywhere except the Four Corners, which is still in the 40s. And then we get a warm-up and then downslope flow. So a bit of a warm-up there, and we erode the cold air mass except where it's settled into the valleys here. You see that right there? Okay. Southern Plains. There's the current map there, downslope, kind of a warm day, 60s and 70s for Texas. This is the old polar high down to the south. For tonight, cold front comes into Oklahoma City, Tulsa, and Lubbock. And then during the day tomorrow, very slow progression, ends up near the Red River, almost to Dallas. Looks like it makes it in there around dusk, about 24 hours from now. And then through tomorrow night, very slow movement on this cold air mass. This is going to be dawn on Tuesday. Looks like it makes it to just north of Houston. Pretty much clear San Antonio there. And then just kind of a mild pattern there for Tuesday. Actually kind of a cool pattern there with highs in the upper 40s and lower 50s there. Okay, for the southeast U.S., current pattern looking like this, westerly flow behind the system that moved off into the Atlantic. And just kind of a mild pattern. There goes that high right there. And then highs in the 70s there by Tuesday. And then where things are active, that's going to be in the northeast. There's the current map there. It looks like the low is right there over New Jersey. Yeah, there it is right there around New Jersey. And then for the overnight hours, the low tracks right up the Hudson River Valley up to Albany by 7Z. That's going to be about 2 in the morning. And then up to Montreal by daybreak. So this appears to be the leading edge of the front right there. Warm front well to the north, it appears. And then behind it, some mild air coming in. In fact, kind of a southwesterly flow there. So not much of a cool down. Most of the cold air staying way up there in Ontario and Quebec. And then for Tuesday and Wednesday, just mild conditions, a little bit of freezing conditions in the higher elevations. And then 40s and 50s for highs. Okay, so that's your short-term forecast, region by region. And now it's time to take a look at the medium range. We can start out by looking at the upper level pattern. Northwesterly flow there, bringing the polar air into the U.S. And we'll just see continued northwesterly flow. And then a bit of a pattern shift towards Thursday. We become more zonal. Looks like the subtropical jet starts showing up in Arizona and New Mexico. In fact, it becomes dominant there. Very strong subtropical jet from Arizona into New Mexico and Texas. And what that means is if we're able to advect any moisture northward from the Gulf into Texas, and we're talking about dew points in the 50s and lower 60s, the shear associated with this would help produce some storms in the higher elevations of Texas. So that's one thing we would have to look out for. But with that anticyclonic pattern, probably not much going on this weekend. And then things look to pick up here over the weekend. Polar front jet across the Rockies. Northwesterly flow once again for next weekend around the 10th. And then kind of a progressive pattern, zonal, with a lot of waves coming across the U.S. one after the other. So at the surface, here's what things are going to be looking like. There goes that old system up into Quebec, and we get that cold outbreak coming into Texas over the next few days. And it looks like by, let's see here, by Wednesday and Thursday, chance of storms there in Texas, but another polar outbreak coming down. And then we go into the weekend. Looks like the zonal flow kind of keeping a lot of this Canadian air at bay, affecting mostly the Midwest and Northern Plains. And then by Sunday and Monday, we start to get some very strong lee side cyclogenesis in Colorado. Saturday, we had that system moving through California and Nevada. This is on the 5th. And then for the 6th, that'll be crossing over the Rockies. And then it emerges out into the plains. Let's see, where was that? Yeah, that was right there on Monday the 6th. So there it goes. There's our next system. But it appears with this very strong downslope flow here, that's going to keep a lot of the Gulf moisture from interacting with this front as it comes into the eastern U.S. there. It looks like finally maybe by Tuesday or Wednesday we get some of that moisture firing off a few storms there in the Ohio River Valley. And looks like kind of a quiet pattern there for the 8th and 9th. Maybe another front coming southward, driven by this very strong high pressure. Very strong cold air advection back in behind that. So yeah, that'll change things up. And it looks like, looks like the Gulf will be open. And that'll interact with the system probably by Friday the 10th there. GFS going for thunderstorms along the leading edge of that front right there around Memphis down into Little Rock. And with that, there could be a few storms that are severe. Okay, so that clears out a little bit of cold weather. Then we return to a warm-up for the 13th. And then we have our next system coming through. Very progressive pattern. And it seems like we get weather changes every couple days, one system after the other there. All right, so that's kind of the summary there. Okay, so let's see here. Carl working on a fingerstyle guitar rendition of Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Yeah, we got that date coming up, so I need to mark that so we can maybe do a special on that in a week or two. And yeah, we can do that song if Carl wants to send that along. That's fine with me. Heavy rain and windy in southern Jersey, 61 degrees. And Ryan looking for another storm system potential from the Atlantic about 10 days out. And I saw something like that sneaking around the Florida area on the map. Let's see, where was that? It was, this thing back here. That was around the 10th, so we'll keep an eye on that, but I think with a very strong zonal flow, it's going to have a bear of a time trying to make it up towards the U.S. So that'll probably remain offshore for the most part. So anyway, that's about all I got for this evening's weathercast. I appreciate you all watching, and hopefully we will see you tomorrow night. Take care.